Picture this. It's 1796. You're 8 years old. Your name is James Phipps. You live in Gloucestershire, England, and your father works as a laborer for a country doctor named Edward Jenner. You don't know any of this is important yet. On the 14th of May, that doctor sits you down, rolls up your sleeve, and makes 2 small cuts in your arm. Not deep, just enough. Then he takes material scraped from a blister on the hand of a local milkmaid named Sarah Nelms, a blister caused by cowpox, a mild disease that cows get and occasionally pass to the people who milk them, and he rubs it directly into the cuts. He does not ask your parents for permission. There is no consent form. There is no ethics board. There is no precedent for what he is about to test because what he is about to test has never been tested before. He is betting your life on a theory. The theory is this: if cowpox and smallpox are related, if surviving one means your body knows how to fight the other, then exposing you to cowpox should protect you from smallpox. And if he's wrong about that, he just gave a healthy 8-year-old child a disease for no reason. 2 months later, to find out if it worked, he injects you with actual smallpox. You don't get sick. Edward Jenner has just invented vaccination, and you, James Phipps, aged 8, are the proof. You were not asked. Hey, it's me, your friendly dead guy with a caffeine problem and an extremely specific interest in the moments where medical history and complete ethical chaos overlap. Today, buddy, we are going to 1796, which is a year that saves, depending on which estimate you believe, somewhere between 300 and 500 million human lives. It is also a year in which a single doctor injects a child with a disease without telling the child's parents exactly what the stakes were. Both of those things are true. They are about the same event. And that tension, that exact specific tension between this man saved more lives than almost anyone in human history and he used a child as a human trial without consent, is what we're here to sit inside today. Because the history of medicine is not a clean story. It is not a story where the heroes follow all the rules and the villains break them. Sometimes the rules don't exist yet. Sometimes the person breaking them is because they are the only person on Earth who actually understands what is at stake. Edward Jenner understood what was at stake. I'm not saying that makes it fine. I'm saying it makes it interesting. And I promise you, the reality of what smallpox was, what it did, and what Edward Jenner risked to stop it is so much more complicated than the statue in Kensington Gardens suggests. Let's establish something before we go any further, mate, because I think most people in 2024 don't have an accurate picture of what we're dealing with here. Smallpox was not a bad flu. Smallpox was not a rough week in bed. Smallpox killed roughly 30% of the people it infected. Of the 70% who survived, a significant portion were permanently blinded. Almost all survivors were left with severe disfiguring scarring, the pockmarks that gave the disease its name, across their face, their arms, their body. In the 18th century, it was so common to be scarred by smallpox that having unmarked skin was considered notable. Smooth skin was the exception. The scars were the baseline. In the 1700s, smallpox killed roughly 400,000 Europeans every year. Every year, not in a pandemic year, not in an outbreak year. In a normal, unremarkable year, 400,000 people died of smallpox in Europe alone. It did not care about your class, your wealth, or your title. Queen Mary II of England died of it in 1694. Emperor Joseph I of Austria died of it in 1711. Tsar Peter II of Russia died of it in 1730. Smallpox killed heads of state the same way it killed laborers' children. It was, to use the technical term, absolutely everywhere. This is the world Edward Jenner grew up in. This is the world James Phipps was born into. Here's the part that tends to surprise people. Jenner did not invent the idea of using disease to fight disease. That idea had existed for centuries. What he invented was a safer version of something that was already happening. Something that was already happening and was, depending on your perspective, either a brave public health intervention or a procedure that occasionally killed the patients it was supposed to protect. This was the problem Jenner was trying to solve. Jenner was a country doctor in Gloucestershire, England. He had been variolating patients since the 1770s, and for years, possibly decades, he had been hearing a piece of local folk wisdom that nobody in the medical establishment was taking seriously. Milkmaids don't get smallpox. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a fringe theory. It was something that people in farming communities had noticed and talked about for generations. Women who worked closely with cows, who regularly contracted the mild skin disease called cowpox from their work, seemed to be protected from smallpox. They went through smallpox epidemics unmarked. When everyone around them was getting sick, they weren't. Their skin stayed smooth. In an era when smooth skin was the exception, milkmaids were famous for it. There are folk songs about it. There are references in literature. The observation was not obscure. What was obscure was the mechanism. Nobody understood why. Nobody had tested whether it was actually true in a controlled way. And nobody with medical training and the willingness to act on it had made the logical leap that Jenner was quietly, methodically, 20 years of thinking about it, preparing to make. If cowpox protects against smallpox, if the two diseases are related enough that surviving one trains the immune system against the other, then you could vaccinate people against the deadliest disease in the world using something that almost never killed anyone. The word vaccinate, by the way, comes from vacca, Latin for cow. Jenner named the process after the animal that accidentally discovered it. Jenner did not rush this. I want to be clear about that. He was not reckless in the sense of being careless. He was reckless in the sense of being certain and acting on that certainty before he had the institutional support or peer-reviewed framework for what he wanted to do. He had been observing, collecting cases, building his theory since the 1770s. By 1796, he was ready. He chose James Phipps, the 8-year-old son of his gardener, a healthy child with no prior exposure to smallpox. On May 14, 1796, he took material from a cowpox blister on the hand of Sarah Nelms, a local milkmaid who had caught cowpox from a cow named Blossom, a detail so perfectly on the nose that it sounds invented, and inoculated James with it. The boy developed a mild fever, a small local reaction at the inoculation site. Then he recovered completely within a week. On July 1, 1796, 48 days later, Jenner inoculated James again, this time with genuine smallpox material. He watched. He waited. Nothing happened. James Phipps did not develop smallpox. He did not get sick. His immune system, primed by the cowpox inoculation 6 weeks earlier, recognized the smallpox and destroyed it before it could take hold. The theory was correct. Jenner was so certain by this point that he repeated the experiment. Over the following years, he performed the procedure on 23 additional subjects, including his own 11-month-old son, Robert. His own son, 11 months old. I am not editorializing here. I am just telling you what happened. Jenner wrote up his findings and submitted them to the Royal Society, the most prestigious scientific body in Britain, in 1797. They rejected it. The rejection was not vicious, it was not personal. It was, in the language of institutional caution, simply a recommendation that Jenner not risk his reputation on so extraordinary a claim without more evidence. The Royal Society had a point in the technical sense. The sample size was small. The mechanism was not understood. The theoretical framework for why cowpox exposure would confer immunity to smallpox did not yet exist. Germ theory was 60 years away. Jenner published privately in 1798. He called the paper an inquiry into the causes and effects of the variolae vaccinae, smallpox of the cow. He coined the term himself. The medical establishment was skeptical. Some were actively hostile. Critics argued that introducing animal disease into human bodies was unnatural, dangerous, and possibly the first step towards growing horns. I am also not making that up. Within 5 years, vaccination had spread across the world. By 1800, the British Army and Navy were vaccinating their troops. By 1801, the American president Thomas Jefferson was organizing mass vaccination in the United States. Napoleon, at war with Britain, nevertheless ordered his entire French army vaccinated when the practice reached France, and reportedly called Jenner one of the greatest men in history. When British prisoners of war petitioned Napoleon for release, he sometimes refused. When Jenner personally wrote to Napoleon requesting the release of specific British prisoners, Napoleon released them, because he explained he could refuse nothing to one of the greatest benefactors of mankind. By 1853, vaccination was compulsory in Britain. By the early 20th century, it was a global program. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, the first and still the only infectious disease ever to have been deliberately wiped from the face of the earth by human action. All right, mate, reality check. This is the part where I pull back from the horror tour and give you something to take with you. Fact 1. Jenner was not operating in a vacuum of ethics. He was operating in a vacuum of framework. The more honest version is the ethical frameworks for medical experimentation that we now consider fundamental: informed consent, independent ethics review, risk disclosure. The principle that patients are not means to ends did not formally exist in 1796. Fact 2. The thing that stopped smallpox was not Jenner's genius alone. It was the global infrastructure that carried his idea. Fact 3. We have done this exactly once. Fact 4. James Phipps got the cottage. Jenner built him a house. Phipps and his family lived in it rent-free for years. Jenner planted roses in the garden himself. That's it for today, mate. If this video made you feel something, that was the point. If it made you grateful for vaccines, good, you should be. If it made you uncomfortable about consent and medical ethics and who gets to make decisions about whose body, good, you should be. Both things can be true. They are both true. If it made you want to know more about Ali Mallon, the last natural smallpox case, the man who survived and then spent his life vaccinating others, look him up. He died in 2013. He was vaccinating children against polio. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me which part of this got you. I have a feeling I know which one it is. It's the roses, isn't it? It's always the roses.